Hello there, guys. This is Christy Lewis from Dostoevsky in Space, and it's a little bit of an unusual wrap up this month because it is already May 31st today. It's a Saturday. I normally wrap up throughout the month and do a big, tie it all together at the end type thing. That's okay. We're just gonna wrap up our May reading here today and talk about our June TBR. So let's jump into it. First of all, I did finish the Apothecary Diaries, Volume 13. This is the latest volume in the series. Probably like my second favorite manga series I've ever read, which probably isn't saying much because I haven't read that many, but I'm actually up to date with it, which I'm really proud about. I don't think that's ever happened for me before. I've described it a million times. It's about a woman. It's very Sherlockian. She lives in a Chinese harem and she serves the ladies of the harem in various ways. But basically, she used to work in an apothecary. Her dad was an apothecary owner, and she's very interested in like poisons and antidotes. And so anytime there's some kind of health mystery happening, making sure my video is still going, within the harem, she figures it out. And it's kind of fun to see how she puts it all together. It's so funny. I really enjoy the art. I mean, it's just the best. It's so great. I really love the art. So high marks for volume 13. I loved it. Next, I finished The Gabriel Hounds by Mary Stewart. So this one is set in the Middle East. I forget which country, Lebanon. And I think what really dominates, Mary Stewart's writing is usually the setting. She's a setting writer. She just loves to create this luscious setting with like a mysterious house. And there's always some mystery going on. This one, it takes a long time for you to figure out anything about what's going on. It's a mystery for a long time. And so as a result, it was like a bit of a slow build. And I was like, 3-star vibes. And then it gets so crazy all of a sudden. And I'm like, okay, it's rising. And I ended up really enjoying this by the end. So in this case, we are following a very independent young woman named Christy Mansell, who is traveling on her own, and she happens to meet her cousin in Lebanon. And she hears from him that their great aunt Harriet actually has a home in Lebanon. And so she decides, I have to see this home. Like, her great aunt Harriet styles herself as this lady explorer extraordinaire from history, and she's known for keeping like young men there as like eye candy who like basically wait on her every need, her hand and foot. And so she's like, I just have to meet this Arabian Nights heroine type aunt, great aunt Harriet. I haven't seen her since I was a kid, basically. They grew up as kids. Her and her cousin grew up as kids with great aunt Harriet visiting her. And so she wants to go see great aunt Harriet. But there's a mystery in great aunt Harriet's household. And so you're kind of trying to unravel what the mystery is. And it's pretty long. I enjoyed this so much, though. I really did. I was trying to read it physically, but it was taking me so long that I finally just switched to audio at a certain point. But I'm really determined to read these mostly physically because I own the physical copies and because I enjoy them so much physically. I feel like when I'm listening on audio, I don't follow the descriptions as well, and I just enjoy them so much with my eyes. So this was great. I enjoyed it. As far as my rankings, I've read like 4 or 5 of Mary Stewart. I would say this is probably like number 3 in my rankings. Next, I finished Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. This is book 6. I took a really long time to read this because I'm just rereading for fun, for relaxation, and so I don't have a ton to say about it, but I enjoyed it. It's just been so wonderful and relaxing to just reread these. I've just really needed things that I cannot have to have any worries in my mind as I'm reading them. And this always provides that. Harry's just so magical, the world of Harry Potter. I did have like notes here, but I forgot to review them before I turned on the camera. But there was a lot of funny stuff that I marked. This one's full of humor because they start dating in book 6. They're finally like 16 and they're dating. So there's a lot of funny stuff that happens. Okay, next, I have 2 editions of this book, but where did my other edition of it go? I don't know. I had 2 editions, but now I only have 1. I think it's because I don't have my glasses on and I'm blind. Oh, there it is. Ugh. So, Alanna, the First Adventure. Which edition do you guys like more? I love them both so much. This one especially, I've just owned since I was a kid, and I've always loved it so much. The long red hair, fantastic. And the purple eyes. A red-haired, purple-eyed heroine got such fantasy vibes, am I right? But these feel like actually middle grade and really lovely, whereas this feels more YA, which honestly, this first book is middle grade, but I feel like the rest of the series is kind of YA. So I'm rereading this because we're doing a Tortallin universe read along right now. Dia from Novel Idea and Victoria and myself, and we are meeting once a month to discuss these. Our first meeting is next Saturday, so June 7th, and we're going to discuss this first book. So I set up the live show. You guys can turn on a reminder for it if you're interested. We're going to discuss bullying and discipline, the code of chivalry, all kinds of stuff. It's going to be fantastic. So this is following a girl who, she and her twin brother, she really wants to be a knight. He really wants to become a mage, a magician. And so because the girl is being sent to a convent, they decide Alanna is going to cut her hair. Alanna's the girl. She's going to cut her hair, and then they look just alike. Her and her twin look just alike if she cuts her hair. She's going to take his place and go pretend to be a boy and become a knight. Her brother's going to go to the convent where he will learn magic. And so this is about her first year. Not her first year. This is about her first... this is about her page years, basically. I think the second book is mainly about her squire years. So basically she's trying to keep it a secret that she's a girl in the palace trying to become a knight, because that is not legal at this time in her country. And this series starts off the world building of Tortall, and then we're going to read the next 2 quartets after the Song of the Blindness quartet, of which this is the first. So there's 2 more quartets after this, the Wild Mage quartet and the Protector of the Small quartet. We're going to read all 3 of them. So this was really fun. I really enjoyed being back in this world. Highly recommend. Okay, next. I think it is my least favorite of the series. But it's just so iconic. It's like the first female-led fantasy. There wasn't really young females leading fantasy when this was published. So that's why it's really iconic. It does feel like an old-fashioned fantasy, but with a female at the head and the problems that she meets because of her gender, her sex. So that's what makes it unique. Now, of course, it's not unique in that sense at all. There's a whole bunch of female-led fantasies. In fact, I would say most fantasies are probably female-led these days. So it's not as unique anymore, this first series, but I just enjoy the characters so much, and the characters who appear in this series appear in the other series as well. And so it's just fun to get to know the world and the characters better, even though I love the other 2 quartets even more than I love this one. So, but it's so nostalgic for me, and yeah. Okay, moving on. Lore Olympus Volume 2, I finished. Just so gorgeous. I forgot I was going to grab my my sketch pad so I could show you guys all of the things that I'm drawing. All of the Lore Olympus drawings that I'm doing. I'm just constantly drawing this, and I'm always looking for other things to draw, of course, but there's just always so much that I want to draw in these. And so it's really easy to find, like, look at this expression. How can I not draw that? That's fabulous. I have to draw that expression. So much sass. And there's a lot like that where I'm just like, oh, that's so, I'm trying to learn how to draw emotions and make them look good on people's faces. And the cartoony style is a little bit easier than like ultra realism. I'm going to do this one another time too. Like angry Persephone. So the Lore Olympus series is a very adult graphic novel series based on a webtoon. The author is from New Zealand. And this was an Eisner nominated webtoon. And yeah, it's a retelling of the Greek gods' myths. And so that's kind of fun. I feel like I'm getting to know the Greek gods a little bit better. I definitely didn't know what all their names were and who they were all famous for. But of course, everybody knows the story of Persephone and Hades. So in this series, Persephone is like a homeschooler from not the underworld, but she gets sent to the underworld and she meets all these gods for the first time. Her mother is finally allowing her to go to school and, do all the stuff. And she's sort of discovering who she is and separating herself out from her mom. She's like super, super book smart, but she has no social experience at all. And so, of course, among all of these crazy sex-crazed gods, the escapades she finds herself in are sometimes just like, I'm so sorry, Persephone, heartbreaking. But it's really emotional. It's like a really easy to read. You just fly through it. And the art is really, really beautiful. So that is that. It's romantasy in a world where dating and sex are so complicated. So, moving on. Let me pull up that was all the books that I had almost all the books that I had stacked here that I finished. So, okay, I should also just mention, I have a couple of others here. This is the Alanna, The First Adventure graphic novel, which I started because, well, it just came out and I just got my hold on it from the library. This is really beautiful. The art is really beautiful, I guess, but honestly, I just like the books better. I read the Protector of the Small graphic novel too, and like I'm hoping maybe it'll appeal to somebody who prefers graphic novels to reading, and then they'll like try out the actual novels. But I honestly just enjoy the novels more. There's more depth to them. But I mean, maybe that's to be expected with the graphic novel series. There can't be as much depth, and it is a bit confusing at times the way it jumps it jumps in time. And because I've read the books, I understand what's happening. But if you haven't actually read the books, I'm like, would you know what's going on here? I don't know. Maybe for more experienced graphic novel readers, it wouldn't be confusing. But it is in color, and the colors are very vibrant. And there's some really famous scenes in this first book that are just fantastic, of course, to be in a graphic novel. You know what this is if you've read the first book. So it's cool to see these scenes, but I actually ended up DNFing this because I was kind of bored because I was like, I just read the first book. So that's that. I DNF'd it, but it's not bad. It's just, I like the books better. So I don't really finish things if they're like 3-star or below. I just like stop reading them. So, okay, let's talk as well. Okay, this was actually sad. Ooh, sorry, way over here. Thorny Hill by Mary Stewart. I can't actually say that I've read this now because I listened to an audiobook because I was trying to get it finished in time for a Patreon meeting for Tiffany's Patreon. And the audiobook is 3 hours long on Libby, but on Audible it's 7 hours long. So over half the book was cut out of the Libby audiobook, and it showed. I was like, what is going on? I had to listen to scenes like more than once to try and figure out what was happening. And by the end, I was like, I don't understand. I didn't even feel like it was a complete story, really, honestly, the abridged version. And so at some point, I'm going to have to go back and try reading this physically, but I was trying to revisit it after listening on audio, after I realized, oh, that probably wasn't the whole book, and I would probably enjoy it more physically anyways. I went back and tried to read it, and I just don't care as much about this storyline. It's not as mysterious or as tense. A lot of them are kind of like romantic suspense. This one is like just super chill. It does have the descriptions, but it's super chill, and there's a mystery, sort of, I guess, but I don't know. This was a different vibe for sure. This one, I wouldn't call this one romantic suspense. This one was just like a quiet, descriptive, classic romance. Is kind of what it felt like to me. But the romance is very understated. So it was fine. However, Dia from Novel Idea, we all read it because Dia loved it. So if you find your taste aligning with Dia from Novel Idea, it might be the perfect book for you. So at some point I want to try and reread it, but I'm just not that drawn to it because I listened to the shortened version and the story just didn't grab me at all. So, all right, moving on. Okay, I actually finished Anathem by Neal Stephenson last month. However, I feel like I'm finally more ready to talk about this. Although, do I really know how to describe it that well? Not really. I really want to film a video with all of my notes, but I just really need to talk about it. This is a sci-fi book, and it's set on not Earth, but there's a lot of similarities to Earth because there's a concept in this book that I don't want to spoil for you guys, that makes that make sense. So if you're concerned about it feeling very foreign, give it a shot. Give it like 200 pages. Really, if you've read 200 pages and you're not interested at all and you don't like the style, it's probably not for you because that's very representative. The first 100 pages, really rough. It just throws you in really hard. It's very confusing. Don't judge it by the first 100 pages. Judge it by the second 100 pages. And if you haven't been like intrigued, you still don't really know what's going on by the second 200th page. You still don't know what's going on and what the rest of the book is going to be about. But the action is like few and far between. It's very cerebral. It's like a very cerebral read. And it's one that when I was reading it, it was like such a different world. I loved listening into their conversations. Tiffany called it really similar to The Name of the Rose, where they have all these cerebral conversations about God, and that's really accurate. So we are beginning the story in what is called a math, which is like a secular monastery for basically it's for scientists or philosophers, like thinking people. They've been herded into these maths because of something called the terrible events in the past. And it's like really unclear what that is, but you get more of a clue of what it is as the story goes on. You do get answers. You don't get answers about everything. And sometimes you're like, why is this the emphasis of the book? I don't really get it, but that for me was a treat because the priorities of the characters are not my priorities a lot of times. And so it was interesting to see that the way that they think. The characters don't stand out, like their personalities don't really stand out really strongly. But their conversations are just delightful and funny. If you enjoy reading a good witty conversation, it might pull you through. Even if the world building is a little bit much for you. And it definitely went over my head, but I didn't care because I was having such a great time. So if you're feeling really overwhelmed by page 200 and you're not enjoying it, again, it doesn't change a lot. There is action in the book. Action does eventually happen, but it's mostly conversation, honestly. So, yeah, it was just, there's like one of my favorite sci-fi tropes in it. And there's like a musical element. There's things that you'll recognize in this. Like there's something that they have it as another name, but it's actually Occam's razor. And there's other philosophical concepts that you'll recognize in here as you're reading it. And it does have in the back a reference, like definition, what do they call it? Index. So you can look up, I didn't know that there was an index in the back where you could look up what all these words mean, but that's really helpful. Like telephone is G-jaw. So definitely make use of that index in the back. Lots of science talk, but I'm not a super scientific person, and I got the point. So it's doable. If you're enjoying it, don't worry too much about trying to understand everything, because you won't. And probably even on your fourth reread, you'll still be like, oh, I missed that. Like, there was something on our live show that I was like, so is this, I asked this question, and Rich, who's read it like 4 times, it's like his favorite book. He was like, oh yeah, I never thought of that. So it's like the Bible. You'll find something new every time you read it. I just have a feeling. It's super rereadable, super, super rereadable. I definitely recommend it if you are a sci-fi person, if you're a worldview reader and you're really interested in concepts and ideas. This was great. Rich calls this like his magnum opus, like it's his greatest work. Yeah, I've already read it 1.5 times, and I definitely want to read the other half of it. Like, so what I did was, because of the live show, I listened to it to make sure that I had at least finished it once through, and then I went back and was reading it. Did I read? No, I've read the whole thing twice. I've read the whole thing twice now, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. I went back and I was rereading it physically as well. Well, 1.5 times. Some parts I only went through once, but other parts I went through twice. We'll say that. Oh, so good, so good. Okay, and then before moving on to the rest of my wrap up, I just wanted to say I got this beautiful gift from Mimi. I don't think I mentioned this in my last video. If I did, please forgive me, but thank you, Mimi. This was my Easter gift, and I'm already like making good progress. What page am I on? 12. Yeah, I'm on page 12. I've started writing a story. I think this came at the perfect time for me to start writing a story. So thank you, Mimi. You were led by the Holy Spirit to send me this. I've been really enjoying writing. And I also picked up some other stuff from a coffee shop. They had a little free library there, and I picked up A Suitable Boy by Vikram Seth, which Kate Howe has recommended. And I'm so excited to have my own copy of this, because it's too long for me to check it out from the library. This will take me like 6 months to read. So I'm really glad to have my own copy. And then I also found All Things Wise and Wonderful, which I think it's not book 1 or book 2. I think it's later, like book 3. And I'm going to start listening to these at night again, because I need cozy, not stressful things to listen to and enjoy at night. Okay. I think I'm going to have to finish the rest of this a little bit later. Hopefully later this weekend, I'll be able to come to you with some more. We'll see. Bye. Hey guys, we're back from the store. So I'm here for a couple more updates. Hopefully I can finish. Maybe not though. This will have to be fast. I read 1st and 2nd Samuel this month. Which it tells, actually, I pulled up just like a Google thing to kind of describe it more thoroughly. It's like the story of Saul and David, really, in my head. That's what I'm thinking. It's the story of Saul and David, but it's named after Samuel. So there's more to it. Basically, it's telling the story of how Israel became a kingdom versus just the people of Israel. When they left Egypt, they lived in their promised land for a while, and then after seeing that all of their neighbors had kings, they decided, we want a king too. So they ask God for a king, and the prophet warns them. I think it starts with the story of Samuel. And Samuel, he lives through one of the sacks of Jerusalem, and he is apprenticed to a high priest, Eli, and he's trained to become a priest. But God speaks to him like audibly, and there's this really famous story about how Samuel is lying down at night, and he thinks he's hearing Eli calling to him, and Eli keeps telling him, no, it's not me. Actually, I think I know what's going on here, Samuel. It's God. God is actually talking to you. God is calling to you. So say, speak, Lord, your servant is listening. And so, that is Samuel. He hears directly from God, and boy, does he have words for the kings of Israel. But anyways, it tells the story of Hannah, his mom, who is childless until she has Samuel, which is really aligning with something else I'm reading right now that I'll talk about next month, but waiting on God and being patient. So yeah, really interesting, very like historical, interesting stories. All these historical books in the Hebrew Old Testament are like really, really interesting. So read through those. Also read First Timothy, which is Paul giving Timothy a lot of advice about how to run a church, because Timothy is still really young to be a pastor and to be head of the church. I read over this because my friend, who is coming out of a Jehovah's Witness family and becoming Protestant Christian, she has questions about it because there's some discussion of gender roles in First Timothy, and there's some really famous verses, infamous verses in there, that are a little bit hard to explain, and I don't necessarily have like answers for all of that, but it's pretty amazing. I do have some resources for her, strangely enough, that I had prepared like a year ago without even knowing why. I was just like, I just feel like I should do this for some reason. Now I know the reason. It's because Jasmine needed to see them. So thank you, Lord, for that. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I really enjoyed it. What is next? I finished so much. I read a lot this month. Yes, let's talk about The Dark Hours by Michael Connelly. This is book 3 in the Renee Ballard and Harry Bosch series, which is a police procedural series that Kevin and I are listening to together. And I just feel like they get better and better. I really do enjoy them, and particularly Kevin enjoys them a lot. They're set in SoCal, which is fun. He is law enforcement in NorCal, so some differences there. And I don't really have a lot to say about them because, like I said, I skim over it, a lot of the details in my mind. It's not like something I'm paying super close attention to. I'm rewinding if I miss something. No, I'm not worried about it like that. A lot of times I will rewind things if I'm listening to a book for me, but I don't do that when I'm with him with his books, unless he wants to, but he never does. He doesn't ever want to do that. So basically, yeah, it's another mystery. Renee Ballard and Harry Bosch they're like partners. They're partner detectives, essentially. And we really like their dynamic duo-ness. And we tried the first book in the Renee Ballard series where it was just Renee Ballard, and it was not as interesting. So we haven't tried the rest of the Harry Bosch series, that are just Harry Bosch, because we're kind of like, well, we like them together. Would we like them apart? I don't know, So, but if we run out of Renee Ballard and Harry Bosch books, we might have to go backwards and try some Harry Bosch books. Okay, I also finished Hardboiled Wonderland by Haruki Murakami. This was fun because this is my second Haruki Murakami book, and what's really nice about it is it's short enough that I could actually go back and dissect it a little bit, whereas with the other one that I've read, Q1884, it's so big. I really haven't put in the work to dissect Q1884, but Hardboiled Wonderland and the End of the World. As you can guess by the title, there's some kind of Alice in Wonderland weird vibes happening, which, I mean, it's not a Haruki Murakami if there isn't something weird happening, right? It's sci-fi, literary sci-fi, and predictably the writing about women is really awful. It's okay, he's trying his best, I'm sure, but it's not great, unfortunately. But that's really the only complaint that I had, because I just love the way he thinks about things. Leaving aside female bodies, everything else that he talks about, I find really interesting the way he thinks about it. Like, the first chapter is, like, set in an elevator, and I'm, like, riveted. like, it's just about an elevator ride, but I'm like, this is so interesting. I just like the way he writes. It's very like, there's just so many ideas. And I find that I really like a story that's soaked in ideas. Even if it's offensive in other ways, I'm just like, give me the ideas so I can ponder them. So I'm still pondering some of the mysteries of this book, but I'm going to be discussing it with my friend Michi. So this was a buddy read, and we're going to meet on Zoom and discuss it. So I have some questions for her. But yeah, there's some Alice in Wonderland vibes. And so in the beginning, there's the main character is entering a building, and there's something weird going on with this building. Like, he's just noticing all these strange touches, like including the elevator. Skip over the part where he meets the receptionist. Not great writing there. But once we get into the building, basically he discovers there's this whole underground world down there. And he meets the person who runs things down there. And in my opinion, a lot of this is like a metaphor for what's going on in his head. There's like 2 levels of consciousness going on in this story. And in one of the levels of consciousness, in the beginning, you're just like, what is happening? There's unicorns. It's like, it seems like a totally different setting, but there's like some eerie similarities to like the top level of his consciousness, which is the story we start with, where he's entering the building. But then the symbology of going underground, I just feel like I don't necessarily say I understand this, but I'm so intrigued, and I had the best time just enjoying it. And I can't wait to discuss it with Michi. Always a fun ride with Haruki Murakami. I don't know if this would be like where to start with him. I've only read 2. Q1884 to me was a great place to start, but it is really long. So I'll try some of his other short ones and let you guys know. I read this one because Michi hadn't read it before, and she's a huge fan. So yeah, that was really, really interesting. It was a good read. Okay, let's talk about The 21 Balloons by William Pene Dubois, which I'm honestly I was just listening to this at bedtime. And so I was like, this was a reread. It's another one kind of like Harry Potter, where it's just like, I need something chill. So it's following a man who created his own balloon craft so that he could basically be alone. He retired from teaching. He's like, I just want to be alone. I want to float through the sky. I want to read my books. I'm going to be self-sufficient for a year. That's like his plan, I think, is to be in the air for a year. But something goes wrong, and he ends up like balloon wrecked in the ocean. And the story of how this happened, which the press is just wild to hear how this happened. He's like, I won't tell you until I get back to San Francisco to the Explorers Guild, and I tell them first. So it's this whole build up to him telling the story, and then the story is like totally worth the build up for me. It's a pretty short classic for children's. It was the winner of the Newbery Medal, and it's just so whimsical and fun. There's like an island with a volcano and like a lost sort of civilization. I mean, it's like so fun, and I highly recommend it. I definitely kind of was sleeping for parts of it. I tried to kind of restart it and go back to where I last remembered, but you know how it is when you're sleeping. Things get skipped. It is what it is. It was a reread, so that was fine with me. I really enjoyed this, though. Highly recommend. It's so chill. It's a perfect book to relax to. Okay, I also finished Power Through Prayer, which I have an audiobook of here. Right here. This I actually started back when Tiffany from Beautiful Minutia and Chrissy from Chrissy's Purple Library, and I think Kelly, I can't remember. Anyway, they were the co-hosts of this read-along, and I read most of it with them. Like at least half of it I was reading with them. And then once they finished, I kind of kept forgetting to go back and finish it, even though it was really good, because it wasn't on Libby. And so I didn't see it. I had to remember, oh yeah, I was listening to this, and I would go find it on YouTube again and keep listening. So it's not a super long book, I don't think. I think it's pretty short. It's like under 3 hours audiobook. But it was so rich that I re-listened to several chapters over and over again just to try and glean everything out of it. Probably reading it physically would have been smart. But did I have the bandwidth to do that? Probably not. So this inspired me so much about prayer. That's really what it was trying to do. It's written for ministers. But aren't all Christians kind of ministers in some ways? I found it incredibly useful just for me to inspire my prayer life. Like, I didn't realize people would spend 5 hours praying. That's crazy. I think maybe it's because I'm an introvert. I don't feel the need to talk that much. Usually when I'm spending time with God, I'm reading the Bible. I'm not spending a ton of time in prayer talking to him. I do usually, obviously there's time for praise. There's time to thank him for things. There's when I'm really stressed out, I will talk to him about that. When I have intercessory prayers, of course, I pray for my friends. That's probably the most prayers that I do, is praying for my friends. And this opened up a whole new world of possibility for me of spending your day popping in and talking to God about anything and everything. I was like, how do you spend 5 hours a day in prayer? Well, it means you pray without ceasing, which is in the Bible, but I think this just put a whole new level of awareness of the kind of relationship that I could have with God through prayer. I wouldn't say I prioritize prayer. I definitely would prioritize Bible study over prayer normally. I just enjoy it more. I enjoy hearing what God has to say to me. But I think you hear God and you learn from God through prayer just as much as you do through the Bible. That way it's a conversation. You're processing things with God. So that was news to me. So I realized I'm not that kind of person who prays a lot, and I want to change that. And this really inspired me in that. So the complaint about it was, of course, that it's mainly aimed towards ministers, but honestly, I thought it worked just fine for a layperson. I got so much out of it. There's a couple chapters where it's I didn't get as much out of that one, but a lot of them I was like, wow. It talked about biblical examples of prayer, and it was good point. Daniel was an important, busy man. He was a political guy, and he still made time for prayer 3 times a day. Definitely putting off important duties and other things that he could have been doing in order to make room for prayer in his life. That was inspiring. That was I really liked that. So this is a great book, The Power Through Prayer. I forget who the author of that one was. E.M. Bounds. That was my first E.M. Bounds. Probably won't be my last. That was super good. Okay, moving on. Okay, I only have a couple more minutes here, so I'm going to do my best to get through these quickly. Escape from Camp 14 by Blaine Harden. I read 2 books by Blaine Harden this month. This was the first. Oh, come on, focus. I don't know if it's focused or not. I can't see. But this is the story of a North Korean defector who, actually, he was a refugee. He didn't defect for any political reasons. He was a refugee because he was born in a labor camp in North Korea, one of the worst ones, where people just basically starve and live really miserable lives, and he didn't know any different. He just thought that's what life was like. But another prisoner comes into the labor camp and tells him, no, there's a lot more out there. So he is the only known person, I believe, to this day. I mean, this was published in 2012, so I first listened to it when I was in college, actually. And there's been some updates since then. So the audiobook is still the same. I listened to the audiobook again, but then when I realized we were going to make this our group book for K-Tripathon, which we are, newsflash, spoiler alert, this is our group book for K-Tripathon this year. I decided to read it for a 3rd time and do it immersion reading, with my eyes. I also interviewed the author, Blaine Harden. So I really wanted to read it thoroughly. So I actually read this twice this month. And there is a foreword and an afterword in the ebook that was not in the original audiobook. So it was news to me. And it just tells kind of the updates, because so Blaine Harden is interviewing this refugee. His name is Shin Dong-hyuk. That's the refugee's name. So basically, this is Shin Dong-hyuk's biography. He has also written a memoir, but I don't think it's translated in English. I think it's only in Korean. Basically, the abuse and torture that he sustained, that he experienced in North Korea, really, it damages you. You can't like come away from that whole. And so that really affects his ability to tell the story. And there's times when he has been like, actually, that wasn't true. I'm going to tell you the real story now. That's happened, I think, twice. One time it was partway through the book. And so the author went through and like updated the book because he had the full story now. And I think that was several years into them meeting. And then the second time was after this book had been published. And now there's a new foreword to kind of introduce the changes to his story. And they are significant changes, but his story is still completely credible. The changes that he made were mainly to protect his own most vulnerable parts of himself. Like, for example, one of the things he changed was that he had his fingernails pulled out in torture, and one of the guards smashed his middle finger because he kept trying to make a fist to hide his fingers from the guards. And he didn't really want to relive that by retelling the world that every time he was asked to tell his story. He was like, actually, no, what happened was I dropped a sewing machine and they chopped my finger off. So you can see the torture scars on his hand, but he changed the story a little bit so that he wouldn't have to relive it all the time. So there were some certain changes like that he made. It's really clear, though, that he did live in this really intense, horrible labor camp, and he kind of made the world aware of it. They were not aware of it. And I was not aware of it. And it's kind of shocking that it's not talked about more, because these camps, the author, Blaine Harden, really compares the camps to like, Soviet Gulag and Nazi German camps. And he's like, these camps have lasted since the 40s or 50s. I don't remember exactly when these camps were started, but they're like 12 times as long that they have lasted. And basically people are worked to death. They're born in the camp or they're brought to the camp for reasons. They might not even know the reasons. There is guilt by association in North Korea. There is punishment without trial in North Korea. There are people there who've done nothing, but a family member of theirs defected to the South. And so all of their family, the grandkids, everybody gets moved to the labor camp for 3 generations to purify their blood. It's like a re-education camp. So it's crazy. This guy was born in the camp because his father's brother escaped to South Korea, like during, I think, the Korean War. Is that correct? I don't know. Regardless, that's why he was born in the camp. So he escapes, tells the world this crazy story. There have been other survivors of the camps, but they went to the camp and then they released. So he's really unique in that he was born in the camp and released. He was born in the camp and then escaped. And he was really unique too, because he got to China and went to a South Korean embassy, and that's how he was saved. And that's really hard to do in China because the police will try to stop North Korean defectors from making it to the South Korean embassy. They try to arrest them and send them back to North Korea. So if you want to learn about probably one of the biggest human rights abuses that are still happening on this earth, check out Escape from Camp 14. Regardless of the changes, it's mind-blowing. It's like really disturbing, but it's worth knowing about because we want to elevate this in discussions with North Korea. It's really important to talk about the nukes that North Korea has, yes, but this to me is just as important. Ooh, yeah. So that is book number 1 from Blaine Harden. I also read a different book from Blaine Harden, but I don't think I have time to talk about that. So, dang, I think that's the last thing I have to talk about. So, I will have to come and talk to you about it later, but it's called The Great Leader and the Fighter Pilot. I'll talk to you soon. Bye! Hey guys, it's quite a bit later, a couple hours later, and I just wanted to finish up because I don't want to have to get ready to film tomorrow. I need to rest tomorrow. So, and tomorrow is June 1st. So let's do our best to finish up. So, the last wrap up item for today is, like I was telling you, The Great Leader and the Fighter Pilot by Blaine Harden. Aww. So this is a biography of Kim Il-sung, who is the great leader of North Korea, the one who founded them, turned them into like an authoritarian state, basically. And it's a simultaneous biography of the fighter pilot, No Kum-sok is his name, who he famously, after the Korean War was over, he defected from the North by flying his MiG fighter pilot from North Korea to South Korea and became an American, and actually just died last year, apparently, according to Blaine Harden, who I interviewed. Yes. This was so good. I was totally wrapped up in this, like really happily listening to it every night. I just listened to it on audio. But I asked some questions of Blaine Harden about this, and I would highly recommend it. It was so interesting. It kind of chronicles how North Korea became the way it is, how that specific brand of authoritarianism was created by Kim Il-sung, and just fascinating. Honestly, I was more interested probably in No Kum-sok's storyline because it was just more personal and interesting, but the rise of Kim Il-sung and how that happened was interesting as well at times as like a framework for North Korea. Really, there were some really interesting things, like how people thought that Kim Il-sung was originally actually not his name and it was a stolen identity, which isn't true. That actually was his identity. And how some of the claims that he made, saying, you know, that he was this great fighter pilot, you know, in the war, in World War II, was it World War? Anyway, some of his claims to fame were like true in a minor way. And then other things were just giant personality cult things, and how he kind of took control, inspired very heavily by Stalin and Mao, their cults of personality. And ironically, he has continued long past them, even though he was like the small fry at the time. Like, they were kind of tired of him, you know? So really interesting. I would definitely recommend it. 1,000 stars. It's super, super good. Okay, and I'm pretty sure that's the last wrap-up item. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So let's talk about the TBR for June. It's actually not huge. Like, I have a lot that I have going on that I'm almost done with. So there's a lot of things that I'll probably finish in June, and I won't talk about all of this here because, like, part of the reason I haven't finished them all is because they went back to the library. So I don't actually have them to show you. But, I did try the Fervor by Alma Katsu. Sorry, forgot. DNF for me. This was a book club book for Crystal from Fiber Artsy's Asian Book Club. And I liked the opening scene for most of it, and I was really intrigued. It was very creepy feeling. And then it described somebody being burned alive and screaming and stuff, and I was like, okay, this is why I steered away from horror for so long. It's because I can't handle that. That was too intense for me, so I just DNF'd it. I didn't give it much of a chance, honestly, because once something has caused me that kind of anxiety, I'm like, probably it's not going to work out for me with that one. But no shame to that. I hope that everybody else loved it, and I need to actually jump into her Discord and mention that. Okay, other things, things that I'm planning to read. I do have Frankenstein by Mary Shelley here. I'm really hoping to get to this because it's not like a super long book, and I haven't reread the entire thing since I was in high school. I also have Deceased, which is it's like Batman, like, who are all the people? The Justice League, that's what it is. The Justice League. It's like a what drew me to this, it might be too scary. I'm just like looking at the art and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like there's a zombie plague taking over Earth. But I'm really interested in like the sci-fi elements. Like there's one volume that's called Dead Planet because the plague is just like wiping away humanity. So I'm interested in the sci-fi concepts, but I have had problems with zombie stuff before that were too scary. So yeah, just looking at this is pretty terrifying. I don't know if I'll be able to handle it. I have also tried Batman comics before and couldn't handle it. It was too much for me. I also have this Rough Guide to Korea. I was enjoying this so much, and then I realized I couldn't really read it at night without it causing me problems. I don't know why. It was like too exciting maybe, or a little too much work because there's no audiobook. I don't know. I'm just really struggling on the sleep train, you guys. But hopefully that'll be changing soon, and I'll be able to actually just read and enjoy reading again and still be able to sleep. We'll see though. We're working on it. It's a work in progress. Dark Lord of Darkholm by Diana Wynne Jones, which I have started, and I actually listened to quite a lot of it, and then I decided I wanted to go back and reread it because it's super funny, and I wasn't catching all the details on audio. And then Alien Clay by Adrien Tchaikovsky. I think I've showed some of these already, like last month, but I didn't get to them. So I still have that one out from the library. I learned from Victoria that Kaylee from Luminous Libra is doing an Inklings read-along. So maybe I'll finally get to The Great Divorce. I really want to. I really want to read this. I also have a biography of Dorothy L. Sayers, who wasn't actually technically an Inkling, but she was friends with the Inklings. And so I feel like maybe she counts. I don't know. And then A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki, which I'm buddy reading with Stephanie from Mr. Richard Reads. I'm like about 100 pages into this. Very mixed feelings, but I don't want to give up on it. I feel like there's enough there that I'm like, I'm intrigued and I want to find out what happens. It could become a 4-star book, but it is a little on the weird side for me. Like there's just a lot of weird modern stuff in it. But it's probably because I haven't read a lot of like modern literature in a long time. It just feels like, ooh, that's jarring, you know. Stuff like this, it's like narrated by a troubled teen in Japan, and she describes like in depth what the call girls who live above her in the apartment above her sound like when they're having sex. Like she goes into so much detail, and it's like, okay, thanks for that. Like just stuff like that I'm like, she's a troubled teen. I get it. But it is kind of weird how she fixates on sex. I'm not even one who necessarily has a problem with sex being in literature. It's like whatever. It's modern life. Modern life has sex in it. All life had sex in it. We just didn't used to talk about it. It's fine. But the amount that she talks about it, it feels a little bit strange to me. Like uncomfortable amounts. But it's okay. I get it. It's troubled teen. So I'm trying to like put up with that because there's some other great stuff about it. Like I'm learning all these Japanese words and I love that. Yeah, there's things that I like about it, and then there's things that I'm like, I don't love that. Yeah. Another thing is, she's supposed to be telling this girl who's very fixated on sex, the troubled teen, she's supposed to be telling the life of her great-grandmother, who is a Buddhist nun. And I'm like, I'm here for the nun. I want to hear about her life. And she's like, you probably think nuns are really boring. And I'm like, no, not at all. I think nuns are fascinating. And she's like, so actually, though, this isn't a boring nun. She's like a feminist and an anarchist, and she's had like love affairs with men and women and, you know, all this stuff. And I'm like, this does not sound like a nun. All right. Well, we'll see. I don't know. I don't really know what I'm going to think of this book. It could flop for me and be a 2-star. It could get like, it could be so meaningful that I end up giving it 4 stars. We'll have to see. In the Hand of the Goddess by Tamora Pierce. This is the second book in the Song of the Lioness series, which we're also going to have a live show for this in June. We're actually having 2 live shows in June. Even though I said 1 live show per month, that's just how it worked out. We're having 2 live shows in June. And then Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. I'm reading this with Victoria. I think we're still on board. I'll have to ask her to make sure, but this was our plan for June. So I have it. So I'm not planning any like really big reads other than that because that's going to take a lot of energy for me. And Howl's Moving Castle, which I'm like 2 seconds from finishing. Reread for me. It's so funny. I just love that book. Other things. Waiting Isn't a Waste by Mark Frogop. Also, like, halfway through this, and it's like a 3-hour audiobook. So I'll be finishing this soon. Excellent Women by Barbara Pym is one of my relaxing reads for the moment. Kev and I are in the middle of now The Waiting by Michael Connelly, which is the next book in the same series that I was talking about earlier. We have At Home in Mitford by Jan Karen is another relaxing book for me. And then Daughters of the Bamboo Grove by Barbara Demick, which is an audiobook I'm listening to because I loved Barbara Demick's book on North Korea. It's probably my favorite book about North Korea, honestly. So this one is about girls who were adopted from China under the one-child policy law. And then I'm also, like, I don't know, 40 or 50% through The Hot Zone by Richard Preston. I'm obsessed. It's so interesting. It's, like, about Ebola and the different strains of it and where they arose and how they were stopped and, like, the threat of it becoming, like, a worldwide problem. Pretty scary because Ebola, the worst strain of it, has a 90% kill rate, and it doesn't matter how good your hospital is, 90% of the people are going to die. So that's a little crazy. And I think that's it. Yeah, other than maybe, like, Lord Olympus Volume 3, maybe another Mary Stewart. Yeah, that's it. Thanks, guys. Let me know what your favorite thing that you read in May was and what you're most excited about in June, and I'll talk to you next month. Bye.